Let's move on. The question and answer session will be very vibrant. Dr. Dorothée Vandamme, research associate at the University of Louvain, Catholic University of Louvain, Center for the Study of Crisis and International Conflicts, and the Genesys Network, and recently also a research fellow of EFSAS. Dr. Vandamme, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the convener for this seminar and the organizers for having gathered such a panel and an audience that is actually interested in the China-Pakistan relations. Working on Pakistan for now 5 years, I have been surprised to see how little attention it gets in Europe. And I can't express how many times I've heard, why do you work on Pakistan? Why do we care from Europe? For a lot of reasons that are being exposed today here. So my focus for today will be specifically on the Pakistan military and the military ties between China and Pakistan. What CPEC means for the Pakistani military, more specifically. Just very shortly, just to put in perspective, in historical perspective, historically China has actually been more willing to negotiate with the military than with the civilian leadership. There are two main reasons for that. First, that the military in Pakistan offers stability and continuity. We all know the history of political regimes in Pakistan, I suppose, and even during civilian government, the military is so strong and so present that they actually offer this continuity and stability that is working in civilian leadership. The military cooperation between China and Pakistan is mainly focused on two areas. First, weapons trade, which includes specifically nuclear assistance, of course very important for Pakistan, military and civilian nuclear, and anti-terrorism. And those relations on anti-terrorism have actually focused on the East Turkestan Islamic movements, more specifically, although it also takes into account a more general view on terrorism. This latest area of cooperation, that is anti-terrorism, is being tackled through both bilateral relations between the two countries and multilateral frameworks. Just to quote two examples of those, the quadrilateral cooperation and coordination mechanism in countering terrorism by the armed forces of Afghanistan, China, Pakistan, and Tajikistan. And second example is the Executive Committee of Regional Anti-Terrorist Structure of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China, militarily and for security reasons, actually focuses a lot on this question of anti-terrorism, and has been mentioned by one of my colleagues before. This question of avoiding any kind of spillover effect is crucial in the relation between China and Pakistan. China wants the Islamic radicalization to stay at the border in Pakistan, tries to avoid any kind of spillover effect in Xinjiang more specifically. Now, let's move on to the CPEC project more specifically. So, inside Pakistan, the army, since this project, actually it's very interesting to see the history of the CPEC project itself. It has, as a starting point, a lot of analysis with 2014 when it was announced. China is actually very good in its foreign policy with beautiful big titles like the CPEC project. It's actually a gathering of a lot of projects that were already planned between the two countries. And since the announcement of this official CPEC project, the official launching of it, the Army has tried to push for a formal role in the execution, in the implementation of all those CPEC projects. It has been rejected by Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, which we all know had a pretty shaky, bad relation with the military leadership. But little by little, the military was able to actually get into those CPEC projects and gain more and more power. One of those examples is the establishment of apex committees at the federal and the provincial levels to enhance communication between civilian and military powers. And basically in Pakistan, when the military is in the room, which is often is, they have the power. So that actually weakens the civilian decision-making power in CPEC projects. If you add to that the fact that historically the military has had the power to meddle in civilian politics, and this colonial legacy that has been mentioned before, which I think is interesting to look at, of military that deals with and guarantees trade and economic related guarantees for infrastructure projects. Let's not forget that the Pakistan military has a legacy from the British colonial army in South Asia. And that's actually important to understand also the military and the interest that they have for economic and financial reasons in CPEC. The military in Pakistan, Ayesha Siddiqa, a pretty famous author on the Pakistan military, called it the MILBUS, military business, which encompasses all those economic and financial interests. So it has direct and indirect economic interest in CPEC. Furthermore, recently, if I'm quoting Zhang, a deputy chairman of China's powerful Central Military Commission, he described the military ties between China and Pakistan as the backbone of China-Pakistan relations. Just some examples of the importance of those projects that are currently on the table between the two armies. The co-production of the JF-17 Thunder, that's the name for the Pakistani military, combat aircraft. The name of this aircraft for China is the FC-1 Xiaodong. There are talks currently of co-producing aerial drones that have been reported in the press lately. I have not seen that before October of this year, so last month, so this is rather new. Very regularly they visit each other's military installations and training institutions. We know that those kinds of relations actually show a certain amount of trust. To open up your military relation to another country, it really shows trust. And joint military exercise between the two countries. So in fact, those actions by China concerning the CPEC project have reinforced the military over the civilian leadership in the management and implementation of CPEC in Pakistan. Well, the three reasons for that is that there's a need to guard those projects very pragmatically. The need to guarantee the security of Chinese workers that are currently in Pakistan. Estimated number is 30,000 Chinese citizens in the country, in Pakistan. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the talk, this question of stability and continuity of the military leadership, that China has actually been disappointed by the civilian governance performance in securing a stable environment for the development of CPEC projects. So the Pakistani Army has set up a special security division which is specifically tasked with protecting Chinese workers and CPEC projects. There are currently about 15,000 troops who are dedicated to these special divisions. It is expected to rise to 25,000 in the near future. And there is also a maritime task force which is dedicated to the security of the Gwadar port. So from the perspective from China, why they have such a strong relationship with Pakistan, with the military in Pakistan, they need a stable Pakistan for the CPEC, obviously. And from the Chinese leadership, although they do have a high number of economic relations with other countries, the Belt and Road Initiative actually encompasses about 60 countries. So Pakistan is just one small country in among those 60 countries. They have labeled the CPEC project as a flagship project of the Belt and Road Initiative. So it is important for the Chinese leadership that this CPEC project actually goes through its development, or at least some of those projects are developed. Also, as I mentioned before, this question of terrorism. The Uyghur insurgency in Xinjiang is crucial for Chinese leadership. And they want to avoid that the Eastern Islamic movement, which has found a sanctuary in North Waziristan, can actually go and foster instability in Xinjiang. So obviously the stability of Pakistan is crucial to avoid spillover, and I should add, although it's not specifically to CPEC, the stability of Afghanistan is also crucial for Chinese leadership. Now the view from Islamabad or Rawalpindi is that the CPEC has been labeled as a matter of state security. Just labeling it that way gives the power to the military. Basically, it has the word security, so the military keeps a very close look into whatever happens in the CPEC project. China is Pakistan's main arms supplier, of course, so the importance of the military ties obviously stems also from that. This is the case since 2012, according to the CPEC studies. Pakistan is more and more seeing China as a possible alternative to the US. Obviously, since it has begun its main arms supplier in this area. But Pakistan also sees the possibility that China might help them more and more, and thus replace the assistance that has been receiving from the US, again from China. A constant rhetoric in Pakistan's foreign policy since 1947 has been to find a patron state, to find a big power that is going to guarantee survival from India and from the Indian threat, from the perceived Indian threat, I should add. And it has looked at China for quite a while actually as a possible alternative. In the CPEC project, that kind of makes it more possible, more real to have this alternative, because it is an inflow of assistance, of economic ties, which is underlined by those military ties. So, what comes next from this relation? Well, the state of the military relation, the fact that the military has basically been able to take over the projects, or a number of those projects, will probably not change under the new government that we have under Imran Khan, because this new government, well, first of all, it came in power because the military has been able to overthrow the Sharif government, and because the current government is notoriously pro-military. If you look at the composition of the cabinet, a lot of those are actually former cabinet members from Sharif. And another element that explains that the military ties will remain so strong, and that the military will remain such a strong player in the CPEC project, is that China will increase pressure for military involvement for security reasons. But there are a number of challenges and problems ahead in this relation and the continuity of the CPEC project. The first of them being the fact that the Pakistan military continues to support Islamist militants and their political fronts, and it could frustrate Pakistan's hope that China will neutralize US pressure, because it actually works in China's advantage that the US continues to pressure Pakistan in this area. An example of that is the fact that China has supported the decision to make Pakistan as grey-listed by the Financial Action Task Force for weak measures on anti-money laundering and countering financing of terrorism. Now, let's remember that, of course, if we look at the China-Pakistan relations, difficult to do so without looking at the China-India relations. So how will that enter into account in the future in Chinese leadership? Will they actually neutralize US pressure just to make sure that Pakistan can keep India busy on its front? That's a possibility. Another challenge that is very clear from the presentation that have come before me is the alienation of local population, specifically in Balochistan. So far, there have been very few gains from the project for local population, few job gains. It's also a constant in Chinese projects that those projects are being implemented by Chinese workers. So it doesn't help the local population to get more jobs. Another factor that has participated in the alienation of population is the military crackdown on militants, especially in Balochistan. It has been extremely strong. And we could even say that there has been an extreme militarization of those projects and of their environment, which makes actually life more difficult on a day-to-day basis for the population. It's very interesting to look at testimonies from local population who explain what they have to go through every day just to get from one point to another, and they have to cross an area that is being secured for CPEC projects, and they can't go there, or they have to go through a detour that is completely crazy. It's very, very interesting. If you're interested in this, I would really strongly suggest you to look at that, at those local testimonies of the impact of this militarization. Now, another problem that might rise in the military relation between the two countries is Pakistan's looming debt crisis, which might actually be complicated by the Chinese debt trap. Actually, today the schedule is still on. There's an IMF team which is due to visit Pakistan to start negotiation on a new IMF loan because of this debt crisis that Pakistan is facing. And it's probable that the IMF will have extremely stringent conditions to an IMF loan. We could probably see two areas in which these conditions will be applied. More transparency on the CPEC project. That will not go down well with the Chinese leadership, which is very well known for keeping those projects pretty secret, shadowy, and we don't really know exactly what happens inside. So the IMF asking for more transparency on the CPEC project will completely clash with this constant of Chinese foreign policy. And another condition that might come from the IMF loan is tightening of Pakistan's fiscal policy. And that might actually destabilize, in some ways, the current government in Pakistan, which has been elected on a platform of establishing an Islamic welfare state in the country, including a bit on the fiscal policy. The very fact that the Pakistani government is turning to the IMF actually might destabilize Imran Khan, because he has been also elected on the fact that of not begging for IMF money anymore, and basically they don't have a choice right now because they're facing this debt crisis, and all those elements could actually frustrate the relation with China. Now, will it frustrate it on the military level? It might, but it is doubtful that it will create a big impact on the military ties. They're strong. Both countries have a lot to gain to keep those military relations, and a lot to lose if they don't have those military relations as strong anymore. Thank you.